we love a tough assignment. There's two parts to this really. Like often, I think for us, a standard, successful business sale, sure, that's fine. We can do those, and we do them all the time. That's fine. But we also kind of like things that are a little bit different. We like things that might have quite a bit of upside that are involved in them, where an owner might have got so far with the business, the directors might have got so far, and there's still a lot more to go, but they've only done so much. We like that sort of stuff. And maybe the business today is only valued at sort of X, but it wouldn't take much for it to be valued at Y, So I don't mind those. And what we can do is often structure a deal where we can find a new owner to take the business on and move it from X to Y, and have it so that the people that are selling can also participate in some of that benefit, because they've really done all the hard work to kind of get it so far. And then it just really needed maybe another owner, another partner to take it to that next level, because they might have more resources or more reach or just better access to the market in terms of growing that business. It just really depends on it. But we love that, we love those ones that are a little bit different.
We often deal with tough assignments, difficult to sell, sometimes even non-profitable businesses. And we look for the best selling points of that business, and the opportunity, focus on the opportunity. And we look to sell to the right buyer who can see the opportunity and take that business forward to where it needs to be.
So we had, a particular business that was owned. It had an Australian operation, it had a New Zealand operation, it had different management teams, it had, it owned IP. It's got, so there's licensing agreements. It was, very complex, I guess, in the way that it was structured. And that's probably an example of a business that, it wasn't very, very profitable. Didn't probably had gaps in sort of, so if you probably look at, sort of getting a business ready for sale, it probably wasn't ready for sale. So we had to do a lot of work, I guess, to get the business ready for sale, which sort of we took on that role, and, appointed a lot of advisors around us to sort of help put this business forward. And, so ultimately, there was a lot of work to sort of, really, I guess, work through the numbers, understand the structure, work out what actually a buyer is actually buying, and what kind of value can be applied to that. A lot of investors just wouldn't invest in it because of the nature of the industry. So I think if we had gone in with a closed-minded approach, I don't think we would have got the results. So I think that it was almost by necessity. But I think that this applies to every deal where you really need to go in with an open mind and really invest time in, and we invest a lot of time in actually in the buyer, and and I think that ultimately I don't think we would have got an offer, and we would have sort of been in the position where we're in if we didn't invest that time.
Well, we have recently been dealing with one of the manufacturing business in Melbourne, and one of the interested buyers is background in China. So he needs my specialties in the industry and also the language skills to help the buyer to come through with the professionalism and honest and transparent with the Fin Group to successfully seal the deal.
I guess a tough assignment for me that comes to mind is one where I had a large manufacturing business in the tube area, and one of their competitors wanted to buy them. The problem was there was a real lack of trust to share information between those two parties, because one was they just didn't trust each other. Well, the seller didn't trust the buyer because the buyer was their competitor primarily. So it seemed like a legitimate transaction to me. I spent a lot of time making sure that the buyer was legitimate, making sure that the buyer had the correct intentions to buy that business. And then it was a lot of work for me to convince the seller that they did have those right intentions and they did want to actually acquire their business and weren't just looking to uncover what their business was doing and who their clients were. So that was a very, very tough assignment for me, because it was a lot of backwards and forwards working with a lack of trust between the two parties. And that there was no real goodwill in that transaction. It made it very, very difficult, and it sort of took it took a lot longer than we ever thought it would take because of that lack of trust and lack of sharing. Eventually, we did get it through. We got the sale done. Everyone's quite happy now, and yeah, but it was very tough at the time. It was actually like we were living on the edge of our seats for the whole 6 months we were working on that transaction to get it to go through. So that gives you an idea of the time frame it can take too. We were negotiating that deal for 6 months to make sure that worked out, and eventually it worked out. It sold, and we were paid well. The client we sold the business for got good money, and I'm sure the buyer was really wrapped with their purchase. So that ended up being a good story, even though every single day, if you asked me if that was going to go ahead, I'd probably say it wasn't going to go ahead. But yeah, we just kept at it. And I guess the big difference for us is that we're first and foremost a sales organization, Brett. So we focus on selling. So we focus on selling the business. We're not an accounting firm that pretends to be selling businesses or an M&A firm like that. We're focused on selling businesses. We're business brokers working in that middle market space, and our main focus is to get a business sold. So being sales agents first and foremost is the difference between being, an accountant that's sort of focused on, probably, the facts and figures rather than the relationship between the two parties. And, if I didn't have the relationship between the two parties on that transaction I was just talking about, that deal would never have gone through, would never have happened. So, so that's probably a primary difference that we have against a lot of our competitors that are in this space.